So my name's Annette. I'm with Reptile Rehabilitation Queensland. So our primary goals are to get animals rescued in the most timely manner that we can, get them transported to a vet, get them some veterinary attention, and then if they pass the criteria to come into rehabilitation, we rehabilitate them through to health and optimal functioning, and then the optimum goal is to get them back out into the wild so they can continue their lives as a wild animal.
So as you can see behind me, there is a lot of aviaries. Now this is a great opportunity for these wild animals to be rehabilitated back into a wild environment before they get re-released back in. So what Annette's got going on here is a fair few different aviary style enclosures which accommodate to the animal's specific needs. So with the water dragon they'll have a lot more water, and say with your birds you'll have a lot more flight paths there. So it's great to see that, and it's a fantastic thing to have available for these wild animals to be released back into the wild. Alright, so we're in this enclosure here, and I believe it was a 3-year build, right? And it's amazing. Like, we'll show you some footage of around the place. There's a waterfall here. And what sort of species do you have inside here?
Predominantly water dragons and turtles, so semi-aquatic or fully aquatic animals. There's a Murray River turtle down in the bottom pond. We'll hopefully get a shot of him. There's goldfish down there with him as well. Feeder fish as well, feeder crays that the animals just feed on. So as you said, it was a 3-year build, and that was due to the level of, I guess, intricacy of the design. So I basically started off with the channel, had the holes dug by an excavator into the rock, and then we got a cement truck in and handcrafted both ponds. And you can see there's a waterfall up to the top left of us. So basically the water comes down the waterfall, down the channel into the bottom pond, then it's filtered out into a pool, pump and sand filter, pumps up, the clean water comes up and then around again. So it's all pretty well self-sustaining.
You can tell how much effort has gone into it, to the point where you've got water dragons, you've got turtles in here, you've got fish
are breeding.
It's amazing. It's a little sanctuary, and I think I could get lost in here. And like how you're sitting right now is a perfect example. If you sit here, check on your animals, and just that sound behind us, it's almost falling asleep.
Yep. And that stays on 24/7, so I actually like it. I find it actually quite relaxing.
It's very soothing, that's for sure.
Yeah. So this is Reuben. Reuben is a frill-neck lizard. These guys used to be around the southeast Queensland, Brisbane area. Rarely will you see them these days though. They tend not to do well around people, whereas, you know, water dragons are fairly prolific because they, you know, do better around human activity. These guys don't. They're a much more secretive lizard, so you will find these guys out in the wild. If they're out basking in the sun and somebody walks along, they'll scamper up a branch like Reuben's sitting on now, and as you walk past they will literally move around to conceal themselves from view, and you can see the position that Reuben's in a vertical kind of stance, as opposed to a lot of your beardies all prefer a horizontal position. These guys prefer a vertical position. Keeping them is different to bearded dragons. They like it fairly dry and fairly hot, and you need to set up enclosures, you know, with those vertical positioning to make them feel at home. Plenty of cover. They tend not to use hides. They would just prefer to be on the side of a branch that they can move around at will. Obviously water, and if you're going to keep them indoors you will need the appropriate UV lighting, and being a day basking dragon you'll need the full 10.0 minimum, and a thermostat to control your heating. So they do like it a little bit warmer, so a basking area you would have up around 35 degrees for these guys, with a thermal gradient in an internal enclosure to about 28 degrees. So in here we have a young male eastern bearded dragon. He's probably about 2 to 3 years old, wild one. His story is he was hit by a car up in the Gatton area. Someone took him into UQ at Gatton, so he's got quite a nasty head injury. At the moment he's on pain relief, which is just some meloxicam, which I have mixed in with his food. He's a little bit dull still, so not self-feeding, so I'm putting his medication in with his food, and we'll just get him out and feed him. So hopefully in the next week or so he'll start to self-feed. I know, sweetheart. I know. So what I'm going to do is just pop him here, which is our usual routine. Sorry, darling. You're a little bit more jumpy today. I know. Sorry, darling. These guys are pretty easy to feed. So all I'm going to do is just, he usually opens his mouth for me, but he's not today. Easy as that. There you go, darling. Sorry to bother you. So we're going to pop him back. So he's in a heated enclosure with 10.0 UV lighting and heating, which are both covered for his protection. And then we keep very good records of our hospital patients. So he's only been here for a few days. So the first sheet is always their rescue sheet and plan from the vet, in which case there's usually a second sheet, but they've given it to me verbally. So I keep records on a whole heap of clinical parameters. So I look at what they're eating, whether it was fed to him like I've just done then, or he hand feeds off faucets, which will be the next step, or then the optimum is self-feeding. So he will catch food himself. Hopefully we'll work up to that over the next week. So his initial weight, I usually only weigh them once a week. With reptiles, it's not so critical to weigh them more often than that. I keep a record of the enclosure temperature, which clearly I haven't been filling out on him, but I know that this enclosure stays pretty stable, so I know what it does. And then I keep an eye on their mental state. So the first couple of days he was quite dull. He was a little bit more alert yesterday, and he's actually even a little bit more alert today. So we'll just fill that in. And then, yeah, as he progresses, so one of these sheets equates to 1 week of care, and I record usually parameters twice a day. And it's Saturday. So in this enclosure, we've got leaf-tailed geckos. There's a male and a female. So these guys have no heating because they do like it quite cool. This room actually naturally stays at their PBT, which is anywhere from about 20 to 25 degrees. So they're in a glass enclosure again to keep it cooler for them. They do have UV lighting because all reptiles require UV lighting. And they've got the, custom backing, which is all siliconed around so that the crickets can't get in behind them. And they've got, I usually put some fresh browse in there as well for them, and they've got some iron bark bits that they can hide under and behind. These guys are fed at night because obviously they're a nocturnal animal, so when the light goes out I'll offer them some crickets. They will eat mealworms out of a bowl. But crickets are probably their favourite food, and again calcium dusted.
So you've done an amazing job. How are you going with funding?
Well, we actually don't get very much funding. So our volunteers and carers pretty much fund their own rehabilitation. So we get a small grant from the local council area each year, which will be an amount up to $2,000 generally. That would not even cover a couple of months of our fuel costs going to and from. So when we think about an animal in rehabilitation, so we've got the initial rescue. So if I went out and rescued Bella, I would have to transport her to a dedicated reptile vet, which is about an hour away from here. Then we have transport back to veterinary care for rechecks and making a new plan as they progress through their rehabilitation. We've got feeding of the animal, We've got, actually even step back before that, we've got setup of the enclosure, which will cost anywhere between $600 and $800 per enclosure. You've got funding then of the consumables in that enclosure, so your UV lighting and heating that needs to be, you know, changed regularly. Thermostats to run the heating, which are an additional cost. Then we've got the cost of feeding the animal. The carers pay for the medications generally if they're not supplied by the vet. Dressing costs, so a lot of reptiles come into care with quite nasty wounds, and they could be in care for anywhere from a year to 18 months. A quick one might be a couple of weeks if it's a, you know, fairly simple one, but a lot of reptiles will be in care for a prolonged period because of their ectothermy and, you know, their different requirements, their slower healing, etc. So the costing for an adult water dragon, just to give you an example, in care for about a year will be in excess of about $800.
Yeah, wow.
And that's one animal. So I do probably 50 to 60 animals a year.
You're doing a great job.
So touching on funding of what we do to get these guys from injury through to release, we have got some really good photographers in the club that have done up some beautiful reptile photography. If you're a non-reptile person, we also have birds and mammals and whatever takes your fancy, right through to custom artwork for sale. It can be reptile related or non-reptile related. We have some even sketches and drawings as well available. We also have an artist in the club that will do custom work. So if you have your own animal that you would like immortalised in a picture, we can accommodate that as well.
Alright, so we've just had a fantastic day here at Annette's place, and it's been one of the most amazing experiences seeing these rehab jobs that you do. It is a little bit of a sad aspect because of what can happen to our native wildlife, but you do a fantastic job. And we actually did a Wollongong Reptile Expo, and we did a raffle with an exoteric enclosure, and we got all those donations, and we want to donate the proceeds to Reptile Rehab.
Oh, thank you.
So we're going to contact you, and we've raised, it was $200, wasn't it? $200 that we raised through the raffle, and we want to help out where we can. We want to help people, so that is for you. So we'll be in contact on how to do the transfer and everything like that. But we hope that you enjoyed the episode, and definitely hit that subscribe button for us, and check out Reptile Rehab. Donations are very welcome because they do a fantastic job. Again, I will keep saying fantastic because we have the fancy here. Until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.